Appreciate you all being here today. Today is Tuesday, the 29th day of March of 2016, and we are happy that you're all here. We hope that you all had a wonderful Easter holiday with your families. I know I did. It was wonderful, and I don't think I might have told this story, but I'm going to tell it again.
Let's hear it again.
So I got married on March 17th, 22 years ago, and we had our reception 2 days later from our wedding, and during the wedding ceremony, the most beautiful popcorn popping on the apricot trees, the big white blossoms all over the trees, beautiful spring day. My reception, complete blizzard 2 days later. Like, we had it up in the valley and there was no way people could get up the canyon. It was that. So here, it's springtime, right? Springtime in Utah,
Right.
and it's wonderful. And we had our warm, and now we've had a little storm, and we're going to go back to warm here in a couple days. So spring in Utah, it's a wonderful thing. A great Easter season. We hope you all enjoyed it. We'll begin today with our invocation by Brad D. And then we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance led today by Kevin McLeod. And our Thought of the Day by Commissioner Ebert. Mr. D.
Our kind and gracious Father in heaven, we humbly approach Thee this beautiful day with gratitude in our hearts for the many blessings which are ours. We thank Thee, Father, for this opportunity we have to serve, and ask Thy continued blessings that we might do that in an eye single to Thy glory. We thank Thee for all the freedoms which we enjoy as a nation and as a state and as a county. We thank Thee so much for these blessings. And Father, at this time we recognize throughout the world the needs for Thy blessings to rain upon us. We recognize the events that may take place or have taken place in other areas of our world, and we pray for those that are war-torn or are subject to those events, and we pray for those people that they might have Thy Spirit and Thy guidance with them. We pray that Thy might soften the hearts of leaders throughout the world, that we might have peace on earth and goodwill towards all men. For we all share that bond of children of our Father in heaven. We say these things humbly and ask Thy continued blessings upon us in this governance. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. All please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Real quick thought today. Greatest gift, greatest wealth, greatest relationship. Health is the greatest gift. Contentment is the greatest wealth. And faithfulness is the best relationship.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. Thank you to all who have participated. Mr. D, Mr. McLeod, Commissioner Ebert. Always sets the tone for our meetings. Thank you. We'll begin now with our consent items. Item number 1 is a request for approval of purchase orders in the amount of $148,736.59. Request for approval of warrants number 403084 through 403444 in the amount of $2,708,354.07. Request for approval of minutes for the meeting held on March 22nd of 2016. Request for approval of change order for Staker Parson on the 3500 West project. Request for approval of change order number 1 for Wardell Brothers on Skyline Drive project. And finally, request for approval to set the date, and this is what we were discussing right prior to the meeting. We need to change that date to May 10th instead of May 17th. May 17th is past the statutory deadline for that meeting, and so we need to have that changed to May 10th, 2016 at 6 p.m. for a public hearing to discuss and or take action on the dissolution of the Ogden Valley Natural Gas District. Okay. Consent items are before us. Mr. Hatch, anything you'd like to point out?
Yeah, this was a quiet week for our purchasing area. We had 26 purchase orders for $149,000. 1/3 of those, or $48,000, went to the purchase of a paramedic cab and chassis. 21% or $31,000 was for the library, primarily audiovisual materials and electronic media. 18% or $27,000 was for the sheriff's office, and that went to ammunition and body cameras. 12% or $18,000 was for the jail, and that was for a HVAC installation and for inmate clothing. This week we wrote 361 checks for $2.7 million. 31% of that, or $832,000, was for medical and dental premiums for county employees. 27%, or $728,000, was for the Summit Pass roadway. 7%, or $191,000, was our monthly payment for contracted services for our paramedics. That payment went to Ogden, Roy, and Weber Fire District. And 6%, or $169,000, was our monthly payment to Human Services.
Okay, thank you. And Fatima, I can't see my minutes. They don't pull up on my thing right now. I sent you an email in jest last week, and you emailed about the minutes, and you emailed me back, I'll make that change. I'm hoping that you knew that that was in jest. I can't see the minutes, so I'm assuming.
Not on there. You can hold them. You're welcome to hold them.
Let's hold them till I make sure that that we didn't approve my jestful comment as part of the official record, all right? Okay, so let's hold those minutes till next week. All right. Any other questions or comments on the consent items?
I just want to just make sure everyone realizes that May 10th meeting is at 6 p.m. It will be an evening meeting,
Okay,
just so that no one shows up here at 10 o'clock on the 10th.
good point. Let's make sure and get those all locked in on the calendar so we don't miss
But
those.
other than that, I'll make a motion that we adopt the consent items as read and amended.
I'll second it.
All right, motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Item number 1, request for approval of a resolution of the Commissioners of Weber County initiating the discussion of the Ogden Valley the dissolution of the Ogden Valley Natural Gas District, which is what we're talking about for our public hearing on May 10th. So Roger.
Commissioners,
Welcome.
just an extenuation. Thank you.
We don't
Pleasure to
get-
be here.
We don't get to see you as much as we
No,
used
I
to.
hide in my office now. I'm part-time, and I let you do all the important stuff
for
now.
being part-time, I see you all the time.
Well, you must be here a lot then, too.
So I don't know how you get away with that, but we're glad to have you.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Commissioners. Pleasure to be in front of you today.
Good to see you.
Just a continuation of item 6 on the consent items. Since there's a resolution involved with this to set the public hearing, we needed to make this an action item so you could pass the resolution to set the public hearing for May 10th at 6 p.m. This is to dissolve a gas district that was created in 1996, was never used. It's been hasn't been a big deal up until the last couple of years. We have to coincide our nomenclature to meet with the state's nomenclature. Since it was never used, the state never created it. And now because technology is to the point where we upload everything right from our system to the states, we're talking about values for tax rates, et cetera. They clash because they don't have the same nomenclature we do because of this gas district. So we're cleaning that up so we don't have to manually do that every year. So it's kind of a house cleaning item. And in fact, it's kind of a impetus to clean up some of the other unused districts that we don't use, some of our old RDA districts. I'd like to get those off the books. Ogden City's filed a few of those. I met with them at their last meeting, their RDA meeting, and they've already closed 4 of them. So we're cleaning up our nomenclature, which is a good thing to do. And this is step 1 for Weber County to do ours.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, this has been one of those that probably should have been done a while ago. We're glad you caught it this time and we can get that straightened out. Commissioners, any questions for Roger?
Resolution 8.
I'll make a motion to accept Resolution 8 on the dissolution of the Ogden Valley Natural Gas District.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second then to approve resolution number 8. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Ebert,
Aye.
Commissioner Bell,
Aye.
Chair Gibson.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you. See you on the 10th
See you
of
at the
May.
hearing, yep. And hopefully before. Item number 2 is the request from the Weber County Elections Department for approval of the 2016 polling places. And we have Ryan here today.
I'll present on his behalf. He had another engagement.
Okay.
First off, I wanted to give big kudos to our
State your name for the
Oh,
record, sir.
yeah, sorry. Ricky Hatch. I work at Weber County. A big kudos to our elections office. We were recently featured in a nationwide newsletter sent by an organization called, the newsletter is called Electricity, and this is based off of, or created by an organization out of Chicago that functions and serves election officials across the country. It highlighted the creative use of Google Voice, which is a free service that our elections office uses to communicate with poll workers and on election day. And it was a fantastic idea that Ryan Cowley came up with, and that our elections team, and Stu is one of those who helped implement that. And the authors of this newsletter contacted me and said this was by far our most popular article, and they sent it out to hundreds of elections officials throughout the country. And we've even received calls from Orange County election officials and others asking for more information about how we use this free service to better our election day service to our poll workers and voters. But that's not why I'm here today. So we're going to talk about polling places, and I want to bring up, so this year Weber County is conducting our elections all by mail. Dan Jones and Associates conducted a poll in December of last year, and 79% of Utahns favor vote by mail and would prefer to have it this year. And this year, actually, 70% of counties and citizens will have vote by mail as their method of voting. 20 out of 29 counties. And just to remind everybody, not remind, I guess it's to toot our own horn a little bit. Weber County was the first large county to conduct, in Utah, to conduct an all-by-mail election. That was done in 2013. We're now almost 3 years later, and it's wonderful to see how much movement and momentum this format has picked up. The nice thing with vote by mail, every active voter in the county receives a ballot at their home. It eliminates the need for us to use schools and churches as polling places, which, while they have wonderful aspects about them, there are also challenges as far as safety and some voters not feeling comfortable going into a church to vote. Vote by mail also reduces the wear and tear on our voting machines, which are aging. They're 11 years old now. And the biggest benefit of vote by mail is it proactively places the ballot in the hands of the voter before they have to cast it. So there are no surprises. You don't walk up to the ballot box and all of a sudden realize there's an initiative or a race that you didn't know about, and now you either cast an uninformed vote or you have to try and think through it on your feet right there. And so vote by mail has all sorts of benefits. So that's why we're moving to vote by mail. Now, we are still going to have places where people can vote in person. In fact, 9.5% of all voters in Weber County last year's municipal elections voted in person. It's not a lot, but we realize the need, and there's some statutory requirements that we have, that we offer at least one polling place. In Weber County, we're all about choice and convenience, and so we're offering more. We're offering 18 early drop-off locations in this year's elections, and they are located. 7 of those drop-off locations will be 24 hours a day. We'll have installed some permanent polling drop-off boxes where voters can go at any time of day or night. On election day, we will have 20 places where voters can either drop off a ballot or go vote themselves. And we call these voting assistance centers because these are here primarily to help voters who either didn't receive their ballot or who had problems or who have disabilities that require them to vote on a voting machine. They aren't able to mark a ballot, perhaps visually impaired. And so we will always have locations for them to go and vote in person. This year, if a voter stands in line in Weber County on election day, it's their own choice because we have so many options that they can avoid that. They can mail in their ballot, they can drop it off beforehand, they can drop it off on election day. We have estimated a good high turnout for November's elections, And so we feel that with our by mail format and the number of polling places that we have set up and the number of drop-off locations, that we'll be able to handle that without much inconvenience to any of the voters. Our voting assistance centers, we have about one voting assistance center per 10,000 voters. But if you consider how many of them have embraced vote by mail, we just don't anticipate a large amount of traffic coming into our voting assistance centers on election day. So you have before you the list of our pre-election drop-off box locations, our election day voting assistance centers, and our election day drop-off centers. And according to our state requirements, this has to be approved by the legislative body, and that's why we're here, is to seek your approval.
So Ricky, I noticed there's on your pre-election drop-off boxes, virtually every city, pretty close.
Yeah.
How are we securing those?
The ones that have an asterisk by them, they are going to be permanent installations. Those boxes have a way to secure them when the election's not open. We actually block off the slot where ballots are dropped.
End up with gum and cigarettes in them?
Correct. The other locations that are not permanent drop-offs, those are on casters. They will be kept within the city office buildings and kept in a locked location. And we have our election team will periodically go and pick up ballots, clear out those boxes to ensure that not too many sit in boxes. But they're always secured. They're always in sight of a city employee during the day, and then in the evening they're locked.
It looks like we have 9 of our election day voting assistance centers. What is that? What's the makeup of that? Is that one person, 2 people?
No, that'll function as a full polling place. We'll have at least 3 poll workers there to help voters with their various needs, provisional balloting, needing to use the ADA equipment on the voting machines, and other questions that they might have.
All right. I just remember in my caucus meeting, they asked for volunteers to help on election day. We're really going to shrink that volunteer number down, you're thinking, because...
Yes,
Yeah,
and we still love people who are excited and interested in the elections process to contact us. We'll put them on a list. We have a good list of poll workers that we use often, but we're always looking for good people.
Okay, all right.
Do we not pay them?
They're paid.
Poll workers are paid. Thank you.
Not a lot, but
Yeah,
they are
not
paid.
not enough, but it's really a service that they provide. It's really good.
I guess the word volunteer wasn't all that wrong, huh? It's just kind of a little bit of compensation. Okay, commissioners, any other questions or comments on this list of polling locations? Got the pre-election drop boxes, the election day voting assistance centers, and the election day drop boxes. Questions, comments?
I don't have any questions. I'll make a motion that we approve the 2016 polling places as presented by Mr. Ricky Hatch.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second before us. Discussion, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? It passes. Thank you, Ricky. To item number 3 on our agenda is the request for consideration and/or action on a request for preliminary plan approving the Fall Widow subdivision Phase 2. It's like Rhonda. Good to see you, Rhonda.
Good to see you, commissioners.
Thanks
It's
for
always
coming.
an honor to come.
You bet.
Okay, I've got a PowerPoint put together so you guys can kind of get a visual of what we're looking at today. The Planning Commission has actually heard and recommended preliminary approval on the Fall Widow subdivision Phase 2. It is a standard subdivision and it currently consists of 5 lots. The Planning Commission's findings and conditions are outlined in your report. I'll get this up and running so I can get you familiar with the site. Okay. So the site is actually located out on, it's approximately 120 to 292 south, 7900 west. I've got the area highlighted in red there where the 5 lots will go. It's actually at the end of a temporary terminal street system. It currently conforms with both the zoning and subdivision requirements, including adequate lot width, lot area, frontage, access along the existing and future dedicated county road, with the exception of the maximum allowable block length and terminal street standards. And so basically, we've got 150-foot widths on all of these lots, and we'll be dedicating some property along the north side of the subdivision. Approximately 4,508 square feet will be dedicated upon recording to to Weber County. The improvement.
Is that for a turnaround? Is that,
Pardon me?
what's that property donated for? Is that for a turnaround area?
Yeah, yeah. So to extend that block or that lot, that street length, so they do have adequate frontage, and then for temporary turnaround areas. There will be the additional infrastructure that's required to be installed, which will include drainage improvements and then that additional street length right there to get this lot to have adequate frontage. The preliminary plan requirements and approval procedures, they include a review of the proposed subdivision and the road connectivity plan for future development. In areas of flat land where no topography presents development barriers, minor terminal streets or cul-de-sacs proposed in subdivisions shall have a maximum length of 650 feet at the beginning of the turnaround, and block length shall be a maximum of 1,300 feet with a maximum or with a minimum block length of 500 feet. And that's why we're actually here. Currently 7900 West terminates at approximately 3,833 feet from the intersection with 900 South. The applicant has developed 18 lots along this portion of the county road, including these proposed 5 lots. The proposed street expansion will increase the terminal street length to approximately 3,912 feet. In 2006, when the Fall Widow subdivision was initially proposed for Phase 1, the applicant had this area right up here showing as a 5th lot. And he actually removed the lot that was north of Lot 4 in an attempt to stay under the 1,300 block length as measured from an uninstalled and undedicated future roadway in the Barbara Flats subdivision, which is actually located here to the south of the subdivision. The applicant initially brought in Phase 2 as a 7-lot subdivision, and based on these standards, he has again removed the 2 northern lots, so it would be again this lot here and then a lot here to again stay underneath that 1,300 block length. However, because these are not installed, we're not calculating those as actually a block length. The code requires that we have connectivity to adjacent properties. So we've asked to connect to the north property and to the east and west. And so the applicant again removed those lots. The Planning Commission didn't feel that there was any topographical or exceptional circumstances to again vary that block length standard. The code says in cases where unusual or topographical or other exceptional conditions exist, variations and exceptions from this title may be made by the County Commission, the Appeal Board for Subdivision Ordinance, after a recommendation from the Planning Commission. So the Planning Commission has forwarded a positive recommendation for this subdivision based on a condition of approval that he will stub to the north property owned by TK Swan and to the east property owned by the Mibus family, in order to adhere to our current standards in the subdivision codes, and also to allow for future development for the adjacent property owners. So the conditions of approval are in the staff report that they've been recommended by the Planning Commission and Planning Division staff. I've had discussions with the County Engineering Division, the Fire Division, Road Department. They all support the need for the stub streets to the adjacent properties. And with that being said, when that happens, it would leave a remnant parcel here of less than 5 acres. So that parcel would either need to be incorporated into the adjacent lot or be made an additional lot for development, which it can do with a stub street going in along there, because that stub street going along the north of the property would actually create the frontage for that lot. So it's definitely a developable parcel. So with that being said, the Planning Commission and the County Commission, or the Planning Commission and the Planning Division don't feel that there's actually any extenuating circumstances to support this variance request. However, the applicant has appealed the Planning Commission's decision. By doing so, it comes to you guys for that final decision and any variations to the standards in the code.
Okay, I have a question or two.
Okay.
Because I see the map, but I can't see the map.
Can't
if you
see
know
the
what I
map.
mean. I can't see the details on it very well. So these are 5 lots, right?
Correct.
3, 4, 5. And what's the double dotted line that runs behind what might be the homes? Is that an acre, where it's showing an acre, or what?
That is actually the buildable area due to the elevation out in this area. It's right around that 4215 level. So basically, to build on the rear of these lots without bringing in any imported material would put it at or below that 4,215 foot elevation that was implemented back in the 80s because of the lake level and different things like that. So it could be developable. It can be developable just by bringing in import to bring it above that elevation.
So they're 5 acre lots, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
And then the length of that shows the 5 acres, with that being the developable area.
Yeah. So kind of just a buildable envelope area there at the front of the lots.
And so, right now, the end of the street only goes to where this new development begins? Is that true? Or does
It actually
go?
goes almost clear to the end.
Okay, it's
So-
just that all the lots are on the west side of the street at this point.
Yes. Yes.
And right now, what the applicant is proposing is the turnabout where the square is, correct?
Correct.
And the property line goes to where the tip of the arrow is.
Yes. Well, the property line, yes, goes all the way up to the tip of the arrow there.
So I guess I'm sympathetic to the fact that we might require or request a stub to that property line. I'm a little bit less sure about why we would go all the way along the other property line to the next property. Are those two equal in importance as far as maintaining the integrity of the statute?
Yes, primarily because we're trying to create connectivity, so we need to do block lengths. And so that we're instead of just one long street, we're making it so that you would have a block here and maybe a block here that would run through. Currently, there is a 60-foot future right-of-way that has been identified, I should say, on the subdivision plat for Barbara Flats, which is located right here on your screens. The key thing with this is that they are now building a house right on that 60-foot line, so there's no setbacks. And we are all very much aware of what those processes entail when we have to go in and do eminent domain to make those block lengths go through. So by the time that this actually, connection-wise, it continues on through TK Swan's property and makes it to the next available road that goes east to west, we'd be looking at probably about 4.5 miles from one point, from 900 South to the next adjacent thoroughfare coming through east to west. So what we're trying to do is, the intent of the code, I should say, is to create connections and to create east and west, north and south connections. And so by having block lengths go stubbing to east and west, that would allow for development to come through on that area of the grid also.
I get that, and I understand the importance of good planning, but I guess I have to admit I'm struggling just a little bit, and help just walk me through it. I'm asking questions, thinking out loud here, but it seems like the developer's responsibility to not cut short in a direction that they're moving a current access. But I worry a little bit about making it an individual developer's responsibility to open up a kind of an access along kind of out of the path.
Right.
You know what I mean? Kind of out of the path of where they're going, and that seems to be a little bit different to me, the need for the two. I mean, I understand why we want to maintain a lane there, or a road there, but I'm having a hard time understanding why that would be this particular developer's responsibility.
Right. And basically it comes down to having the developers pay for the development. So if per se, say that this is not required of Mr. Bell, the next property owner would be required to put in those because of the standards in the code. The developers always have to stub to the adjacent properties to make that connectivity go through per the code. But Mr. Bell has been the one that has been able to develop almost the entire block that we're looking at here, 18 lots, without having to put in any improvements thus far. And typically the developers are the ones that are responsible for putting in those developments. So this burden would actually fall on, like right out the gate, fall on the next person that develops along this road, instead of the one that's actually utilized the majority of the area,
So who put the road in the first place?
the county.
So,
Up to the certain point, there was a road there long before there were homes.
Yeah.
okay, so just so you know, there's no relation.
Oh, I didn't even connect the two till
I
just now.
have no,
Do you even know Cliff Bell?
I have no idea who he
All
is.
right, just checking, because I'm
So-
sure there's somebody who would like to make
Yeah.
that leap, so.
Right.
Good point.
So and I understand, I see this to the cul-de-sac, what they're doing, and I do know we want, maybe go to the end of the street. And he does have that other piece of property if we move the street along north-south there. I'm assuming that's north-south.
Yes.
And I have a hard time seeing why he would be responsible for putting that street in when he doesn't even necessarily want to develop his last lot there. If he ever wanted to develop that lot, he'd have to put the street in, or we could set it up such that if he says, well, I want someone else to develop that street, then I'll just tag on to it. We can always set up a little zone in there of the 2 feet, whatever. And so we can
the
say,
protection strip.
you're going to have to protection. You're protecting strips here, so you're going to have to pay when it comes time. But I have a hard time pushing him into doing everything to do there, because I don't think that's, I don't know. I have a hard time seeing that. Beyond his current subdivision that he's doing. I mean, it would be great to pre-plan out every little ounce and step and foot and of the whole county. But we still have property owners, and they still have rights, and they have abilities to do some things. So that's where I see a little bit of a concern there.
Well, Rhonda, tell me, just to clarify what we're asking the developer to do here. It's not to actually build the road, right? It's the dedication of.
The code requires them to vary it, to build it, and so that's where you guys have the ability to vary any of those standards. You can vary the need to do it. You can actually ask for something that was along the same lines as what was done in Barbara Flats, which is just to dedicate a future right of way. And we're asking that question right now because the key concern is that he comes in with another one lot subdivision to bring it past that 1,300 block length. And we are again saying, well, economically it doesn't make sense to require him to put in a road for one lot. And right now we're looking at an overall of 18 lots. And so the can has been kicked down the road to the point that we're now at the end of his development without any stub streets east and west. And so you guys have the right to vary the requirement in whole, or the right to use whatever means that you feel will actually address it in the future when it's needed. But the planning commission had to go off of what the code required.
It's a common practice that's used throughout the county when we are approving these types of lots or these types of subdivisions.
Yes, it is.
So you're asking us to go outside what we've done in the past?
Yes.
Or that's what the request
That's what the
would be?
applicant's requesting.
Have
yeah.
we ever gone outside what we've done in the past?
Not the only ones that I would say have gone out of the typical standards have been part of a PRUD.
So we're looking beyond
Where
this,
did-
this 5 lots here. This is the end of a larger development is what?
Yes, yes.
And so at the end of the larger development, we're asking him to finish the project as far as the requirements.
Correct.
Okay.
I can only imagine the cost of that road.
Yeah, that's my concern.
I'm just,
If he doesn't develop the road, who will?
It would be the taxpayers if deemed needed in the future, or the adjacent property owners that needed to have the connectivity for their development if and when needed.
So if we have him, if we make him develop it, then the other folks around there are just gonna be happy as can be. They don't have to pay a red cent. They can just jump on that road and be part of their thing.
Well, it would only go,
Hatfield's
yeah.
shaking his
I
head
mean,
no.
But again, like you said, you could do a protection strip at the end of each one of those so that if TK Swan or the Mibus family came forward with development, they would need to work out the details with Mr. Bell.
But what about doing none of it and leaving it nothing, and then if all of a sudden they decide they want to start developing and the other folks want to develop, let them develop the road and then put the strips and put the strips onto Mr. Bell's property. So if he wants to develop that last lot, he's going to have to be part of it. Is that a possibility?
so, not that this really matters too much, but, and I don't know if you have the answer to this, but all this property that's proposed to develop right now, so there's 25 acres or so on that side of the street, wasn't that all originally owned by the Mibus family?
I
The
believe
same-
so.
So that's the same people that own the property to the east
Correct.
again?
The question I have is if there was a road that was going directly into the subdivision all the way from one end to the other, or to service houses that were built in the middle, who would pay for that road?
So say that we were going to go,
So
so
say,
say
yeah,
he was
direct-
going to go like this and up this way
Correct,
and maybe
yeah.
do a cul-de-sac up in here,
Yeah.
he would be required to build all of
Right.
that. The other
So-
thing that we're also looking at is safe ingress and egress. And that was primarily the Planning Commission's key concern, is that intersection at 900 South and 7900 West. It's very narrow. And it's, it's not quite up to county standards as it is already. And so by adding another 5 lots, that's pretty much everybody's key concern, is providing safe vehicle ingress and egress.
So is there
In a more complex subdivision, Commissioner, and this is just my attempt to answer your question, maybe one where that's got more homes and a few more roads, maybe like the one you live in. A developer would be responsible for laying that all out and planning those roads and building those roads as part of that development. This one is one of those that there have been lots, on both sides of it, and an existing county road. And we're looking at a 5-lot subdivision instead of a 100 or 200 lot subdivision where roads are built into the part of the package.
Are all these lots on the other side of the road part of this?
They're part of his earlier subdivisions and phases, yes.
So there's already houses on those?
Yes.
I don't know what the cost would be to add that road in to go beyond the cul-de-sac there, but it's gotta be a lot of money. And I just don't think that it's fair that we make him buy the road and put it in for everyone else. I don't know, I see some issue there. I see the cul-de-sac, that's his plan. I know we want to plan everything, but why would we force a property owner you know, to say, well, we don't want your cul-de-sac here, we really want it here. I don't know, especially when we're out on 5-acre lots, this is a whole different, this isn't a little tiny subdivision in my neighborhood that we're on half acres. You know, this is, so, and that's gonna be a long road.
Commissioners, may I add something? I would like to read the standard as far as varying from the codes. There's an additional section that went beyond what was added. It says the county commission may vary the standards in cases where unusual topographical or other exceptional conditions exist. The following are not considered exceptional conditions such as financial, economic, or self-imposed. And so that limits to what we are able to vary the code, the basis we are able to vary the code. And there are other options that, like Commissioner Bell had mentioned, that there are protection strips that if the developer is required to front the cost of that, if the adjacent property owner wants to develop it, I think these protection strips last 10 years, they can recoup a portion of those costs.
Correct.
Yeah, but yeah, I understand that, but you know, you take 10 years, I mean, when you're developing property, you're doing it over dozens and dozens of years, and so you wait till the 10 years is up, and then all of a sudden you have a free road. That's my, and I understand that cost can't be the mitigating factor at all, but.
But the statute, in your opinion then, the statute requires us to have this developer build that road to the east?
Yeah.
And how is that, what is the language that requires that? Because again, I thought the intent of the statute was not to block future development in the path. I guess I should be sure, but to me, this is opening up, you know, obviously planning is all good, but this is opening up a whole new, to have one property owner be responsible to open up a whole new area. And frankly, it does matter to me a little bit that this is, if it's what I suspect, that this was all owned by the same property owner, you know, part of it is sold off now and blocked off, I think, at the time, probably somewhat intentionally. And now we're requiring the new property owner to build a road that could be very expensive to open up the rest of that property. I have some concerns with that.
Well, and the issue, the way that I see it, is we need to, if there's going to be a variance standard, we have to find a reason why we would vary from the maximum 1,300 block lengths when we have a street that is nearly 4,000 feet
Correct.
without any
Without any.
Roads.
Correct, yeah. So the code, it's in 106.2, and it says that the street arrangement must be such to cause no unnecessary hardship to owners of adjacent or of joining property when they plat their own land and seek to provide convenient access to it. And that is where it also then goes in to say that the maximum length of a terminal street shall be no more than 650 feet to the beginning of the turnaround, and the maximum of a block length, and that's where it would be east and west, shall be no more than 1,300 feet.
Can we do a dirt road? Does it have to be a paved road?
I don't think so. I don't know. That would be an engineering thing. If it could be
Can we put
just
a little piece
a
of,
private lane through there.
just put a
I-
dirt road?
We do have some county roads that are
They're dirt,
not
right.
private lanes, but they're
Yeah,
gravel.
yeah, it just as long as it would withhold the fire standards, which is 75,000 pounds.
But, no, wait, so, but what would it, that this road, if say, let's say it does hold the fire standard, why would they even go down that road? There's nothing down that road.
Not till future development comes in.
Right, when
Correct.
future development comes in.
It still has to hit a standard to be considered a road.
Right. And why would they go down there? Say something happened at the corner of 900 South.
Right.
And they
I-
that was the only way they could get out. So, because the rest of the properties along there they've been subdivided out, they've been developed on. So if it's a dirt road, at least they would have some way of getting out of there if something happened.
I mean, we have, you know, I don't know how many county dirt roads we have. I know we have them.
We have a few.
We
We're
have
trying
a
to get
few
rid of
that,
some of them.
yeah, we'd like to. But I'm worried that I don't know, that's
Well,
my
I
concern.
think we've definitely heard concerns.
Yeah.
I've got some, and I'm not sure how to work through it. Is the petitioner here?
Yes, he is.
Would you come up and state your name for the record and give us your thoughts on this?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's
Morning.
Cliff Bell.
Make a note, we're not related.
We're not. My grandpa was the last one out of Texas, and all he had was sisters, so I'm pretty
Okay.
sure we're not.
Yeah, that's probably.
I'd like to put on the record that we're not related either.
Okay. Somehow, I guess.
You do look a lot alike.
He's a handsome
Can't be.
feller, isn't he?
He looks good. A couple things I'd like to clarify. The dotted lines going across there, that is not the elevation height. That ground meets all the elevation going east, has no problem. That dotted line is for what I knew that would become a problem was when the farmer goes to irrigate, all the water's gonna go that way. So I created that easement there that we could dig a ditch along the back of those people's property or in the middle of the property so we could divert that water around into the starting of the drain ditch. The drain ditch starts at the end of that street on that 7900. That's the starting of that drain ditch, which goes the full length down there. The home that is being built right now, it does have that and has maintained that 60-foot right-of-way for the existing road that would go west or the open easement. So it is maintained there, even though they're building. He had a shop up there a long time ago, and they come down and met with me. We staked out the property and set that aside for the 60-foot. A couple of things that I just wanted to point out on as far as development and keeping those standards. So a few weeks ago, Gene Mibus approached me that he wants to put one more lot on the end, which would be the south side of those, the subdivision that's coming there, which would leave 60 feet is what we figured in when we went and did this, so he wouldn't block his access to get back because he owns from there to 7,500. And that's the improvements he wants to make going that way. I've also talked to Ike Swan going out, and with a road running the east and west on the end of that, he's more concerned about me blocking his way to that. Also, he says it's going to be a long time before he develops. It's going to take sewer to come out there so he can put some more houses in there, which is not what we want out in western Weber County, but we want some more acreage, but that's neither here nor there. But if he was to do that, then he would have that connectivity through there, then be able to split his road to go to 7,500 and also go to 8,300 going east and west and put houses on both sides, which would give you the connectivity plus what Gene has through his to connect his to 75 to put the houses back there. So we haven't blocked anything that isn't there, you know, that leaves to openness or future development and that. It is there. The right-of-ways are there. The right-of-ways are there for the east. You look at what 7,500 has. 7,500 goes 4 or 5 miles without any road going east or west or any right-of-way. 6,700 is the same way. 7,900, you know, you're looking going a long ways between those roads. That's just how it is out there in those developments. I've had other developments where we've gone in and we've had to buy the chunk of ground. We're also buying grandma's house and ending up having to tear down grandma's house to put in the roads to make all that work. But you look at what people move out there for, they want the acreage. They want the openness to maintain that way. I know that putting in a road, you know, is a financial burden, and it'll make the difference of doing it and not doing it if I have to put in any type of road. But that's just, I mean, you make that decision, and I can live with it being farm ground or not, but that's how it goes. But it's not, I mean, you're thinking of the future here by having the open adjacent lanes and talking to Ike and getting that spread out that way. That works. I did put in the road, half of that road. It did cost me $200,000 where all those houses are at, putting in there. And so, you know, that's when the market crashed in '06 that I had those in there, and I had fronted all the money. So I sat holding that for a long time. But I would like to put in the 7 lots and connect it to Ike's property so that he can have it. But if it doesn't, then I'll just have to hold it off and go from there. But I hope I answered all your questions with what I.
Any questions you have for Mr.
I
Bell?
think you've answered all my questions.
Okay.
Commissioner, anything
No,
else?
I don't have any questions. Again, the concern that I continue to have is that if we have the ordinance and it's not written correctly for West Weaver, then we need to change the ordinance. My concern is that we have a very unique situation out in the west part of our county, but we have an ordinance that covers the entire county, and if we were to give a variance to this particular project, it may negatively affect us on projects that this is more adapt to deal with the issues at another time. And so for me, I think maybe what we need to do is look at the ordinance and see if we need to have some changes for a specific part of the county. I don't know if we can do that or not, but I'm just concerned with a variance that may negatively impact other subdivision projects coming forward. It may put us in a precarious position.
Well, I'm concerned with it too. I agree with, I think we're done if you want to sit down and just stay close,
Well,
just
you
in
haven't,
case we
I
have a
just
question.
say one thing. You haven't had one person on our street or in the community come to argue this. It's been out, everybody knows about it. Not one person's come to argue what we're doing here, so
Appreciate that.
thank you.
So what I was saying, Commissioner Ebert, I think that I share a lot of those concerns about making sure that the ordinance is applied uniformly, and that's why we have them. Sometimes we try to lock down everything we can in those ordinances so that the decisions are easy, and that's part of the problem in some ways, because then you get faced with a situation like this where, frankly, I'm struggling with putting all that burden of opening up that block on one developer, a small one at that, and so that's the question: is does the ordinance give us room to make adjustments based upon the real world situation out there? And I'm struggling with this
Well,
one.
I think we've been told it very clearly does not give us the opportunity, because there's not a topographical specific issue that we can point to that gives us, that's in the language for the ordinance.
Well,
If there was something that was in there that I could point to and say, here's the issue for a variance, but it's been said it cannot be financial. It cannot be, it specifically lays out some of the items that we've basically brought up as the reason we would do the variance. And I would feel comfortable if it was nebulous, right? But it very specifically says you cannot give the variance for these reasons, and those are the reasons we've talked about. So
I don't know that they're the only reasons, and that's my only thought, is that seeing, at least having the concern that I have about how this plays out in real life. I'm wondering, I don't know, Rhonda, is this something that you perceive as imminent in its need here? Is this something that we could take a little bit of time and bring this back at a future meeting? Or is this something that you think needs to be decided in today's meeting?
In order for the applicant to move forward with with final, he would need direction. So he'd need to know whether we can move forward without an extension and based on a code rewrite, or based on it meeting the code, he has to move forward with the stubbed roads. So we're kind of at that point where we need direction.
I mean, I understand where the code is now, the 1,300 feet, but we probably break that code all over out west. Am I not?
With the current
With the-
configurations
right,
of
with
how
the current,
everything
the
is.
way it is out there, we've
Yeah.
got to be, everywhere you turn around, we've got to be breaking that code.
Right, right, you know, and because typically it's been one or two lots coming in, you know,
Right.
one or two lots, and it's not been the same developer going along those, and so it's just been, I call them the mom and pop subdivisions, where it's just not financially
I mean,
necessary or feasible to be
right.
requiring those things.
And out west there, from what I remember out west is, so this code has come in, this requirement has come in, and I assume that's a requirement that we passed as a previous commission passed, or was that passed by state law that said, hey, this is what it's got to be?
It's our code.
Probably
It's-
our
yeah,
code. So I don't know when it was passed or how it was passed, but there's got to be, like I said, hundreds of examples of it not working out there. This has got to be a long way from it. Now, I agree in a nice, tight, you know, Uinta Highlands, it's probably a great code. Works out well out there in my neighborhood. Probably works out fairly well in a lot of places in the valley.
Right.
But out west, I just don't see this, because the thing that they're going to have to do anyway for water, electricity, for natural gas, you know, when you start getting out there and putting in 5-acre lots and spreading them apart out there, they're paying a lot of dang money to get those utilities moved out there. And they're paying a lot of dang money for a road if a road has to be built. And so I just don't see the wisdom in that for out there in that area out there. I don't.
Commissioners, if I might add, the process for fixing that, if there is problems with the code, is to amend the code.
Understand that.
We have to follow our own laws. If we were to disregard the code and it was sent up to the courts, I can almost guarantee that they would find that to be illegal because we did not follow our own code. So I agree with Commissioner Ebert that if there's a change that needs to happen, it has to be through the modification of the ordinance, which would go through the public hearing process. I mean, there is a separate process for that.
Correct.
So if that is the law, so-called, then why is it being brought to us?
Well, because we're the appeal body, but.
You're the appeal
Okay.
But I reject both of those premises slightly from the standpoint that I think that it's likely that we could find exceptions that would apply, and that's what I'm asking for. I would like to take some time here
I agree.
and make sure and make a better decision rather than. I mean, I know that everybody wants to move forward quickly, and I would imagine that Mr. Bell is anxious as anybody, but I think that I would like to hold off on this, commissioners, and
Oh,
give me a little
yeah.
bit of chance to process exactly what I think is the best thing here. By way of information, it looks like we probably won't have a commission meeting next week, so it would be 2 weeks before
Okay.
we could get this back on the
Okay.
agenda. But to me, I feel like that's the best
agree.
answer
Well,
today.
if I had some legal foundation to approve a variance, I would do it today.
Right.
But there's nothing being presented to me that is legal foundation for that variance, and the only thing that I've heard is in exact opposition to what is outlined. And so if we could find something that I could plant my flag in, I agree with everything that Commissioner Bell and Commissioner Gibson has said. We need to find something that allows us to grant that variance, or we need to change the ordinance. I mean,
Right.
for me, those are the only two options.
And that's kind of where we've been as, you know, a staff.
Well,
How do we get this forward?
Right.
And so the only way to do it is to get it to you guys,
Correct.
because we just didn't have the ability to do it. And so
and that's
I'm
the
glad
thing.
to
I
see
don't-
that you guys are as perplexed by this as
I
we've
don't
been.
think I think it's clear that none of us are willing to break the law, right? We're all gonna follow the law, and we just need to figure out how things apply appropriately, so.
And Commissioner Gibson, you do bring up a good point that there is room in the current ordinance. I mean, it doesn't specifically define what exceptional conditions are. It says what they are not.
Right. that's
And
my
so if we do take a closer look and you would like to have legal review it and render an opinion, we are more than happy to do that and push this to a later commission meeting date.
Well, and I don't mind pushing off a little bit because I think that if Mr. Bell is going to try to do some of his, this is the time of the year when we need that to happen. So I hope we can, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, come with a resolution on this, one way or the other for you. So
Well,
I
I
hope
don't
that
think,
doesn't throw a major hardship in you, but we need to walk down the right path to make sure that we're doing the right thing, so.
well, I don't think we need any action. I think we can
I
just
agree.
have this on our agenda in 2 weeks and
Okay.
we'll go from there, okay?
All right, thank you.
And we'll get together with you and planning and see what we need to do and what some of our choices are there, so.
Okay, to item number 4.
Thank you for coming.
Request for consideration and or action on a request for final approval of Jacqueline Estates Cluster Subdivision, 6 lots, including a financial guarantee for subdivision improvements in the amount of $110,746.02. This approval also includes a county survey monumentation improvement agreement in the amount of $3,500. Ben, good to see you. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Commission. We have a request for final approval of Jacqueline Estates Cluster Subdivision, Phase 1. I'll just kind of go through some of the more important pieces. If you want to get into the details of how it meets and complies with the zoning code, I can cover that. The Planning Commission has reviewed this and recommended approval of the cluster subdivision. A point to note is that since then, the county has modified the standards of the cluster subdivision. So this would be probably the last subdivision that met that previous code. With that, this property is on the corner of 2200 South and 4900 West. The subdivision in total was granted 19 lots. 6 of which will be in Phase 1 and then another 13 in Phase 2. The lots have been working with and installing water services with Taylor West Weber Water, and is also on the Central Weber Sewer District. The applicant has submitted a escrow for $110,746.02. Also, there is a separate escrow for the monuments, survey monuments in the road of $3,500. With that, staff is recommending final approval. The applicant is here if you'd like to speak with him as well.
Love to hear from him.
But
Bring him up.
if you have any questions for me, you can let me know.
Okay, stay close.
Okay.
Will the applicant come up? I hope this one's easier than the last one. What's that?
Shouldn't be.
Okay.
We're prepared to move forward with Jacqueline Estates. We have everything in except with the exception of the gas line.
Can you state your name real
Oh, sorry, Julie Standing, representing CJ Homes Development, Inc., Jacqueline Estates Cluster Subdivision, Phase 1. So we're prepared to move forward. We're going to do the improvements with the bond that will be held in the county funds. We've done as much as we can for now, but we're going to put it in the county to get, so we can get a building permit and get started with Lot 5 as far as the subdivision goes. So, pretty straightforward.
I think it looks good.
Questions for the
Nope.
petitioner?
I think it looks great.
Okay.
Want me to make a motion?
Sure, if you're ready.
I'll make a motion that we accept the final approval of Jacqueline Estate Cluster Subdivision, Phase 1, 6 lots.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second then, as stated, to support that approval. Any further discussion to the motion? Okay, seeing none, do we need a roll call on that? No? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Unanimous. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Our next item is our public comment. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to comment today at our meeting? Come on up, state your
Come on
name for
up.
the record.
So I'm Julie Standing, but I'm actually had a comment on the voting thing. We we went to the voting caucuses and did all that, but we were wondering, how come we can't vote online versus deal with the crowd? You know, I mean, I don't mind dealing with the crowd, but I mean, I really wanted to know, how come we haven't moved to an online thing? Because it's so, I mean, to stand there and then
You're talking the party caucus meetings,
yeah, I mean, we stood there for hours and hours, and then when we finally got in there,
right?
it was a paper ballot. They didn't even check ID. They didn't do anything like that. And I was very concerned.
You actually could have voted online for president. You could have voted online for president, but those are done by the caucuses, which is the Republicans or Democrats or Constitutionalists, and that's a private organization, which is a little different than we are. However, they could have, maybe Ricky can address some of that, but you could have voted online for president. That you could have done.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
For
You
the
know.
Republican side.
For the Republican
Democrats
side. Maybe-
didn't have an online option.
Maybe rather than an open discussion on something that's not on our agenda, Ricky really is the expert on all things elections. Would you be willing to just catch him right after the meeting? He can fill you in on all of it.
Sure. I mean,
We
I-
always
We're done
walk-
now.
Or we could stay here another hour.
No,
I've
I
got
don't wanna
plenty of
stay
material.
I'll pass.
No,
I will
don't
take
stay
as
another
much time.
hour.
I will
I
take
gotta
as much
go.
time as you want. It's just that we always walk a fine line when we discuss during public comment, the legal
Okay.
aspect of discussing something that's not on our public meeting agenda. So if public comment is one thing, but discussion between the commissioners and the public is a little bit of a fine line there from our attorneys, we've been told. So we'll
give you a 2-minute version
Don't leave
after.
without talking to Ricky, okay?
Okay, thank you.
It won't take an hour, I promise.
Okay, perfect. The next item on the agenda should not have been there, but we will, it was a mistake on my part for not catching that, but we probably will not meet next week due to some scheduling conflicts. So our next meeting will be in 2 weeks from today. Our final item on the agenda then?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Have a nice spring week.
Thank you for coming.